Have you ever looked at your life and wondered why? No matter how hard you work, you never seem to move forward. You wake up tired, chase the same bills, fight the same fears, and tell yourself you're doing your best, but deep down, you know something's missing. You've been loyal to effort, but effort alone never saved anyone. You've been told to work harder, be patient, stay humble. But what if humility is what's keeping you broke? What if the real trap isn't the system, but the way you've been trained to think the room is silent? You stand before a massive black gate carved from stone. On its surface are words that shimmer like fire. Knowledge is the price of freedom. You reach out. The moment your fingers touch the cold stone, it melts like water, and flashes of your past pour into your mind. Every careless swipe of your card, every moment you blamed luck, every time you said, maybe next month. You feel the weight of every wasted year pressing down on you until your knees tremble. Then a voice speaks low and precise, the kind that doesn't ask for attention because it already owns it. You think you lost money. You didn't. You lost awareness. Poverty begins in the mind. The gate splits open, revealing a mirror. Inside it, you see a version of yourself that doesn't flinch, doesn't apologize, doesn't ask for permission. This reflection doesn't live for approval. It commands it. As you reach for it, the mirror cracks and shards of glass slice across your hands. The pain is real, but so is the clarity. The pieces rearrange into a single sentence glowing in silver light. Wealth starts in the mind. You understand it now. You were never fighting the world. You were fighting blindness. You take a breath. The fear is still there, but it no longer rules you. This is the first gate. The price of truth is pain, and you've paid it. From this moment forward, you are not working for money. Money will work for you. If this truth unsettled you, don't look away. Stay. Subscribe, because this is only the beginning. The next gate is waiting. Do you ever feel like you're giving everything but still losing? You wake up exhausted, push through another day, and by night you're too numb to dream. You tell yourself this is what hard work looks like, that maybe next month will be better. But deep down, you're tired of lying to yourself. You're not lazy. You're not stupid. You're just stuck in a game designed to keep you chasing. You enter the second chamber. Heat presses against your skin. The air smells like metal and sweat. Before you stands a factory the size of a city. Thousands of people grind, push, sweat, scream. Their arms are scarred, their eyes hollow. But no matter how hard they work, the machines move backward. Production counts go down. Time slips faster. It makes no sense until it does. You walk among them. No one looks at you. They're too busy surviving. And then you see it above the chaos, a balcony with a single chair. A man sits there untouched. He moves one lever and hundreds below shift in response. He doesn't shout. He doesn't sweat. He controls everything without lifting a finger. Then a voice behind you, cold and calm. They worship effort. He built a system. You turn. It's him, Machiavelli. They suffer to be seen. He built so he could disappear. And that's when it hits you, no one's coming to rescue you. Because this is how the system was built. Not to reward effort, but to multiply leverage. You were never meant to escape by running harder. You escape by building higher. You step back from the crowd. No more applause for struggle. No more begging to be picked. From today forward, you study levers. You seek silence. You build what frees you. If this shook, you stay. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber, we'll break the myth of permission and show you what happens when you stop waiting to be chosen. How many opportunities have you lost because you were waiting for someone to say yes? How many dreams have you buried because you were afraid of hearing no? How many times did you swallow your voice, lower your price, step back from the table just to avoid making someone uncomfortable? And after all of that, did they ever give you what you deserved? You walk into the third chamber. The ceiling is high and black, lit only by a row of flickering torches. In front of you, hundreds of people kneel on a cold stone floor. Their hands are raised. Their mouths whisper the same words. Please pick me. Please notice me. Please give me a chance. Each person has a badge on their chest, Labels like hard worker, loyal team player, obedient. They don't look up. They don't question. They just wait. You feel your stomach twist because you recognize yourself in them. Then the door creaks open. A man steps in. Sharp suit. Cold eyes. No empathy. He doesn't speak. He just walks down the line. Every fifth person gets a coin. The rest are ignored. The ones who were skipped cry. Some beg louder. Others just collapse. You step forward, your instincts telling you to raise your hand. But something inside you says no. You stay silent. You stare back. And that's when he stops. He looks at you. For the first time, his expression changes. He nods and leaves the room. A voice echoes behind you. Power doesn't ask. It moves. Machiavelli stands behind the crowd. Permission is a cage built by people who fear rejection more than they fear regret. You walk past the kneeling crowd, past the labels, past the fear. You don't wait. You don't beg. You choose yourself. If you've spent your life waiting for someone to approve your worth, this is your wake-up call. Subscribe. Because in the next room, we don't just say no to comfort. We sacrifice it. And what you give up there will shape everything you become. How much have you lost chasing pleasure that didn't last? How many times have you told yourself you deserved it just to escape the pressure of the life you hate? How often have you chosen comfort over growth, distractions over discipline, and called it self-care when deep down you knew it was self-sabotage? You step into the fourth chamber. It doesn't feel like a test. It feels like a reward. A banquet table stretches farther than your eyes can see, overflowing with food, jewels, gold, soft chairs, warm lights, beautiful faces. The air smells like luxury. Music plays softly. A man across the table raises a glass and nods to you. "You've earned this," he says. You sit. The chair hugs your body. The food is perfect. Everyone smiles. For the first time in a long time, you don't feel invisible. You feel seen, wanted, valued. And yet something in your chest tightens. It feels too easy. Then you notice them. In the corners, behind the curtains, shadows, watching, silent. You look closer at the guests. They're not eating. Not really. They're stuck, smiling, pretending. And their plates never empty. The feast never ends. They are prisoners dressed in velvet chains. Machiavelli appears beside you. He doesn't sit. He leans in. "This is how most people are controlled," he says, "not by violence, but by pleasure, by comfort, by 1,000 little yeses that cost them their crown." You stand. The music stops. You knock over your cup. Silence. Then one guest looks at you, eyes full of longing but cannot follow. They are too full, too tired, too late. You walk away from the table, your stomach empty, but your hands free. Behind you, the feast burns. Sacrifice is the price of sovereignty. If you've been numbing your hunger with distractions, this is your sign to wake up. Subscribe. Because in the next room, we don't eat. We forge weapons. And every weapon begins with leverage. Are you tired of feeling like no matter how much you give, it's never enough? Do you ever wonder why some people build empires while you can barely catch your breath? Have you been sold the lie that hard work alone will save you, only to realize you're building someone else's dream, while yours slowly dies in silence? You step into the fifth chamber. It's dark and hot. A single anvil sits in the center, glowing red. Chains hang from the ceiling. Tools are scattered on the floor. Around you, echoes of voices cry out, grunting, groaning, breaking under invisible weight. You recognize the sound. It's the sound of people trying to build success with nothing but their bare hands. A hammer appears in your hand. Instinctively, you swing it at a metal bar resting on the anvil. Sparks fly. You swing again. Sweat drips. Your arms shake. But the bar won't bend. No matter how much strength you use, it stays the same. Then the voice returns. Calm, calculated, cruel. "You're still trying to conquer the world with your own hands," Machiavelli says. But the prince doesn't fight. He leverages. A panel opens in the floor. Beneath it, pulleys gears a hidden mechanism. You study it, adjust it, connect the hammer to the system. Then you press a single button. The entire forge moves. The hammer swings with precision. The bar bends perfectly. One motion, a fraction of the effort, 10 times the result. You realize the truth. Leverage isn't cheating. It's the reward for those who think beyond labor. Tools, systems, automation, delegation. These are not shortcuts. They are the strategy of rulers. You drop the hammer. Not in defeat, but in clarity. Your mind is now your strongest muscle. If you've been burning yourself out trying to do everything alone, it's time to stop playing the worker and start becoming the architect. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber, we stop hiding. And we start building the narrative that makes the world move around you. How many times have you been overlooked? Not because you lack talent, but because you didn't look the part. How often have you watched less capable people rise above you simply because they told a better story? Have you ever felt invisible in a room where you knew you had the answers, but no one cared enough to listen? You enter the sixth chamber. It's quiet. Too quiet. The walls are lined with mirrors, tall, flawless, cold. Each mirror reflects a different version of you. In one, you look desperate. In another, weak. In another, exhausted, chasing approval. You try to find the real you, but every version feels distorted. Or maybe they're all true. In the center of the room stands a full-length mirror. This one doesn't reflect your body, it reflects how others see you. You walk closer and watch yourself shift. Unreliable, forgettable, disposable. You step back. Shame creeps in. You want to smash the glass. That's when the voice returns, measured and sharp. They don't see who you are. They see what you project. Machiavelli says, "Perception is reality. Control it or be controlled by it." You look again. Slowly, the reflection changes. Not because the mirror changed, but because you did. Your shoulders square. Your gaze hardens. You're still you, but no longer apologizing for it. And then you understand. Your reputation isn't built by accident. It's a currency. Every detail, how you speak, how you show up, how you carry yourself, is either building power or leaking it. You leave the room with nothing in your hands, but with a presence that can no longer be ignored. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, underestimated, this is your reminder that power doesn't wait to be discovered. It is designed. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber, we stop chasing fairness, and we learn how the game is actually played. Have you ever followed all the rules only to lose anyway? Have you ever played fair but watched cheaters win promotions, deals, influence, and respect while you stayed stuck in the same place? Have you ever sat in silence wondering why doing things the right way keeps leading to the wrong results? You step into the seventh chamber and instantly feel the heat of battle. It's an arena carved from black stone. People are running, shouting, pushing, fighting, but something is off. There are no rules posted, no clear direction, just a voice shouting new commands every few minutes. What was rewarded 5 minutes ago is now punished. The scoreboard resets without warning. The fastest runner is forced to start over. The one who waited gains points. You join the race. You try to follow. You try to make sense of it. But nothing works. No matter how precise you are, you lose. You watch others who break the rules succeed. You see people with no skill winning simply because they understood something you didn't. The rules are not fixed. The game is rigged. And then you hear him again, calm, unapologetic. Only the naive expect fairness, Machiavelli says. The powerful learn the system. The weak complain about it. You stop running. You step out of the chaos and begin watching. You see the patterns. You notice who's whispering to the scorekeeper, who's bending the rules not to break the game but to control it. The truth crashes down. You were never losing because you were bad. You were losing because you believed the rules were meant to protect you. They weren't. They were meant to test who's willing to learn how power really works. You leave the arena not as a player but as a strategist. If you've ever felt like the game was stacked against you, it was. But you can still win. Not by running harder, but by seeing clearer. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber we confront dependence. And what you'll discover there will either chain you or set you free. Have you ever felt a knot in your stomach at the thought of losing your job, not because you loved it, but because you had no other option? Have you ever stayed silent in a room full of disrespect just to protect the paycheck you desperately needed? Have you built your entire life on the promise that one income, one company, one person would take care of you, only to realize they never will? You enter the 8th chamber. It's cold, metallic, dimly lit. In the center of the room, there's a thick steel chain connected to a vault labeled salary. The chain is locked tightly around your ankle. It doesn't hurt at first. It feels familiar, predictable, safe, until you try to move. You take a step and the chain jerks you back. You try again. Same result. You look around and see others chained to their own vaults, each one marked with different words like job approval, retirement plan, corporate loyalty. They all tell themselves they're secure, but none of them can move. You sit down, frustrated, defeated. Then a whisper in the dark. That's not security. That's captivity, Machiavelli says. And the key isn't out there. It's in your other hand. You look down, and there it is, a small silver key resting in your palm. It was there the entire time. You unlock the chain. It falls to the ground with a dull thud. You step forward. The vault doesn't explode. The world doesn't end. Nothing happens except for the silence that follows. The silence of finally being free. And then you understand. Dependence was never about survival. It was about fear. The kind of fear that convinces people to stay small, obedient, and quiet. You won't be one of them anymore. You leave the chamber barefoot but untethered. If you've been holding your breath hoping one stream of income will protect you forever, it won't. But that doesn't have to be the end of your story. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber we expose the lie of consumerism and the high cost of looking rich while staying poor. Have you ever bought something just to feel alive for a moment and then felt empty the second you got home? Have you ever tried to impress people who wouldn't even notice if you failed tomorrow? Are you stuck in a cycle where you spend to feel powerful, but every purchase just leaves you more broke and more hollow? You walk into the 9th chamber, and it looks like paradise. The ground is soft velvet. The trees bloom with gold watches, designer shoes, and luxury cars hanging like fruit. Everything is bright, polished, perfect. You take a step, and the floor glows beneath your feet. It feels good. It feels expensive. People are scattered throughout the garden, smiling, taking selfies, posing beside things they don't own. You watch one man reach up and grab a golden chain from a branch. He places it around his neck. For a moment he shines, and then the gold begins to melt, dripping down his chest, burning holes into his skin. He screams, but no one turns. They're too busy scrolling. You reach for a leaf and find a credit card embedded in it. It whispers to you, "You deserve this. You've worked hard." But another voice interrupts, one you've come to recognize. Fake wealth is loud. Real wealth is silent, Machiavelli says. If it doesn't grow your power, it's not luxury. It's a leash. You stop, look around, and you finally see it. The garden isn't a reward. It's a trap. Every path leads back to the beginning. Every tree sells the illusion of success while feeding the system that keeps you broke. You leave the garden, not because you couldn't afford it, but because now you understand the cost. Applause fades. Appearances rot. But ownership is quiet and permanent. If you've been spending to feel significant while drowning in silent regret, it's time to rewrite the script. Subscribe. Because in the next chamber, we confront the one trait that separates kings from pawns: ruthless discipline. And that's where your real wealth begins. Why do they keep telling you to be patient when your patience has only made others rich? How many times have you worked late, skipped meals, swallowed your anger just to stay loyal to people who would replace you tomorrow? Have you realized that waiting for permission is the fastest way to become invisible? You enter the 10th room, and it's silent. A long hallway, dozens of doors, each one labeled with promises. Promotion, someday, just one more year. The walls are lined with photographs of smiling faces, people who waited, people who followed the rules, people who are now forgotten. You reach for a door that says stability, It's locked. Another one says recognition, also locked. You try freedom, and the handle is warm, but it too won't budge. At the far end of the hallway sits an old man on a bench flipping through a stack of rejection letters. You ask him how long he's been here. Since I was your age, he whispers. I waited. They told me to trust the process. Then you notice something horrifying. There's no clock in this room, no windows. Time doesn't exist here. Just perpetual delay. Hope repackaged as obedience. Machiavelli appears beside you. This room feeds on people who confuse loyalty with silence, who think sacrificing themselves will earn them power. But no one hands power to the quiet. Power is taken strategically, intentionally, silently, and only by those who dare to exit the hallway. You turn from the doors. You stop waiting. You walk away from the promises and toward the path you build yourself. You don't knock. You don't ask. You open your own door because you can. If you've spent years playing nice in a system designed to use you, it's time to wake up. Subscribe. Because in the next chapter, we'll expose the cold truth behind every fake mentor, every dishonest leader, and show you how to lead without needing permission. Have you ever made a decision that didn't feel like yours? Have you ever said yes but heard a quiet no screaming inside your chest? What if your thoughts aren't entirely your own but shaped, filtered, softened by the voices of those who never had the courage to live freely? This isn't just guilt. This isn't just doubt. This is conditioning. In the 11th room, it's quiet but not peaceful. The air hums with faint whispers. You see no one, but you feel surrounded. A child's voice says, "Don't make them upset." A woman sighs, "Just be grateful." A man scoffs, "That's not realistic." They echo in corners of your memory. You thought you sealed shut. Every time you reach toward your ambition, one of those voices tugs at your sleeve. Not out of hate, but out of fear. These voices aren't your enemies. They're echoes of people who settled, who traded their fire for safety and now call it wisdom. You begin to realize the enemy was never external. It was the narrative, the internalized caution, the inherited fear. You were never weak, you were just buried beneath other people's survival stories. Machiavelli appears again, calm, cold, clear. They didn't mean to imprison you, he says. They just didn't know how to be free. You stare into the mirror in the center of the room. This is the first time you hear your own voice, raw, unapologetic, sovereign. And it says only one thing: I choose for myself now. If you've lived your life filtering your instincts through someone else's fears, it's time to stop. Subscribe, because in Chapter 12, you'll learn how to build a strategy that silences every ghost, every guilt, every no, and finally hear the only yes that matters, your own. Do you ever feel like you talk too much and say too little? That the more you explain yourself, the less they respect you? Have you noticed how the people who truly hold power rarely speak, and when they do, they never repeat themselves? This is not shyness. It's strategy. Silence, when intentional, is louder than noise. In a world where everyone is screaming for attention, the one who controls their voice becomes untouchable. In this chapter, you don't shout. You don't defend. You simply disappear strategically. You stop attending every argument you're invited to. You no longer respond to manipulation disguised as concern. You understand that people don't change when you explain. They change when they're forced to sit in your silence. The room you enter now is lined with masks. Each one represents a version of you shaped by others' expectations: the good daughter, the helpful son, the loyal friend, the understanding partner. One by one, you peel them off. And as you do, something happens. People get uncomfortable. They want the old you back. Not because they loved that version, but because it was easy to control. Machiavelli appears again, nodding toward a chessboard in the center. The one who moves first reveals their strategy, he says. The one who waits owns the game. Silence is not absence. It is pressure. It is leverage. It is the power to make others feel the weight of your boundaries without saying a word. If you've been drained trying to prove your worth, it's time to stop talking. Let your absence speak. Let your calm disturb them. And if you feel this truth in your bones, subscribe. because in chapter 13, you won't just be silent, you'll become unreadable. And that, my friend, is where real power begins. Do they only love you when they can predict you? Do they only respect you when you stay small, soft, and easy to read? Have you ever felt like the more people understand you, the more they use it against you? Then it's time to become unreadable. Not cold, not fake, just private, guarded, strategic. There's a quiet kind of pain that comes from being too available. When you've made your heart an open book, don't be surprised when people start skipping pages or writing their own ending. This chapter is not about revenge. It's about repositioning. You don't need to be cruel. You need to become unpredictable. You start saying less revealing, less reacting, less. You trade emotional exposure for intentional mystery. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. When they can no longer read you, they can no longer control you. This isn't manipulation, it's self-defense. It's protecting your peace, your plans, and your energy. You stop posting every detail. You stop texting back right away. You let silence do the talking, and you let your moves be seen only after they're made. Machiavelli watches from the edge of the scene. Power is rarely loud, he says. It's the one they cannot figure out who terrifies them the most. And he's right. The unreadable are untouchable, because when people can't predict your next move, they stop trying to trap you. You become a ghost in their narrative. And yet somehow you're the one writing it now. If that resonates with the part of you that's been taken for granted, don't just nod. Subscribe, because in chapter 14 we step into the final form. You don't just hold power. You become the environment where power happens. Have you ever walked into a room and realized no one there really knows who you've become? Have you ever sat across from someone who still talks to you like the version of yourself you outgrew years ago? What happens when you finally become everything they said you couldn't yet? You feel no need to show them. That's not silence. That's power. This is the chapter where you stop proving yourself. You don't post the wins. You don't announce the moves. You live in peace and let that quiet victory echo louder than any performance ever could. You see, real power doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't dance for approval. Real power is sitting in a room full of people who once doubted you and feeling absolutely no urge to correct their assumptions. Because you've outgrown the need to be understood. You've replaced the addiction to validation with a calm that cannot be shaken. They wanted a reaction. You gave them distance. They wanted to pull you back. You disappeared forward. They expected you to seek revenge. You chose elevation. That's when they realize your silence was never weakness. It was a warning. And Machiavelli. He would have smiled at this chapter, because this is the final evolution. The kind of strength that doesn't seek control but is control. The kind of power that doesn't dominate but reshapes the entire room by its presence alone. If this hits something inside you, if you feel it in your chest, not just your mind, subscribe. Because silence may be your language now, but what comes next is even deeper. You don't just choose power. You become the place where power lives. Have you ever been everyone's shoulder, but never had one to lean on? Have you ever held the family together while quietly falling apart yourself? What does it cost to be the strong one? And how long can you pay that price before it breaks you? No one checks on the person who looks like they've got it all handled. No one asks the caregiver if she's sleeping at night. No one wonders if the one always saying, "I'm fine," is actually one more bad day away from collapse. This chapter is for you, the strong one. The one who absorbs pain without flinching, who smiles through betrayal, who keeps showing up even when no one claps thanks or notices. But here's the truth. No one told you strength without rest is self-destruction. Carrying everyone else while neglecting yourself is not noble. It's how resentment grows in silence. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were meant to choose who's worth carrying, and not everyone deserves that place. Some people only love you when you're useful. Some will drain you, smile, and ask for more. But real love, real family, asks, who's holding you while you hold the world? This is the chapter where you learn to choose yourself without guilt, where boundaries aren't walls but doors with locks, because your peace is sacred. You don't need to explain why you're tired. You don't need to justify why you're done. You just need to remember being strong doesn't mean being silent about your own needs. If you felt invisible inside your own strength, subscribe, because the next chapter, it's not about endurance, it's about liberation. Do they ever check on you when they don't need something? When was the last time they called just to ask how you are without a request hiding behind it? Have you started to wonder if you're loved or just conveniently used? There's a special kind of heartbreak that comes from realizing you were never the priority, only the backup plan. The emergency contact, the one they remember when their world is crumbling but forget when they're celebrating. You gave without keeping score. You showed up even when your tank was empty. You answered late-night calls, lent money you couldn't spare, stayed silent to keep the peace. And yet when you needed someone's silence, you were labeled dramatic, too emotional, selfish for finally asking for what you always gave. This chapter is about waking up. It's about facing the truth most people spend years avoiding, that some relationships only work as long as you stay small, silent, and self-sacrificing. But you're allowed to walk away from one-sided love. You're allowed to protect your peace. And you're allowed to stop watering dead plants just because you planted them. So here's your permission. Stop being available to people who are only consistent in their absence. Let the phone ring. Let the favor go unanswered. Because your worth isn't measured by how much pain you can tolerate, it's measured by how fiercely you protect your heart after it's been broken. If this chapter made something ache inside you, hit subscribe. The next one, it's not about being needed, it's about being valued.